Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today, especially on a Sunday. Hope you enjoyed the master session yesterday. And today we have another exciting session from UpsideLMS. So they are our learning partner for the event LauncHeR by NIPM Kerala chapter. So I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all who generously helped us in making this event come together. So we will be discussing on something called learning management system today, often called an LMS for short. A learning management system is a software application that provides the framework that handles all aspects of the learning process. It's where you house, deliver, and track your training content. While most often called as LMS, other names that might be used might be like training management system or a learning activity management system or even learning experience platform, that is LXP. So in addition to the delivering content, an LMS can also handle things such as onboarding, compliance, skills gap analysis, etc. So we have amongst us Amit Gautam, who is the CEO of UpsideLMS. Amit is the founder and CEO of UpsideLMS. He is a learning technologies enthusiast and a passionate leader, an IIM and NIT alumnus. Amit is the key idea generator for UpsideLMS. I'm sure that Pranjali might also join with us. So welcome Amit and Pranjali to this session. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Prasida. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's a Sunday, so double thanks. It's not easy. It looks like working from home is easy, but it's not. So Sunday, Monday, everything is in a big flux. So I'm happy to see, and this is my first masterclass. So I'm actually happy this is happening virtually. So I don't want to get stage fright in front of so many people. So thank you, Prasida, for the introduction. I think it does cover my role to a large extent. And I have been in the learning domain for about 2 decades now. So before founding UpsideLMS, I was in another e-learning company, which is where kind of my journey into learning solutions began. And it's been exciting since then. It's been a good journey. And in the last 20 years, I have seen, from a CD-based learning delivery to today, chatbots on mobile, which can give you and deliver learning to you, as you need. So there has been a huge change in the way things have happened in the learning domain. And so today in this session, I would try to cover especially the experience we have had in the last 1 year. And I've been, I'm as I know for the audience today, I believe that all of you are HR practitioners to some extent. I'm not aware of how many of you are, have had an experience in learning solutions or learning delivery or L&D function in any capacity. So I will try to cover how in the last year has impacted the way we work, and most of these things which I will be sharing are from our experience with our customers. So I have tried to not go into too much of details in terms of theories and how things used to be, but my main focus would be the last 1 year, the impact of that, and also what does it mean for us moving forward as L&D practitioners or HR people. What does this all mean to us moving forward? And it's just an hour. I would try to keep my part to about 40-45 minutes. And learning is a vast domain, so I will try to touch upon the key areas which I think are going through a kind of a huge change. And I would definitely love to have a few minutes in the end, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever is possible, to kind of pick your brains and understand what are you going through and what are you experiencing, and learn from this group as a whole. So, thank you again for joining me today. And my focus is just a little larger than the LMS, though we are an LMS company. and we also offer other solutions. But I thought I'll kind of use this time to kind of look at the learning domain a little bit bigger than the LMS, because LMS has been a key component. It is still a key component, but there are a lot of new things happening. So I thought we'll just look at those things through. So before I begin, just by a show of hands, how many of the audience today have some experience in the learning domain, like have been L&D practitioner, or maybe even a service provider to some extent? Okay, I can see some hands. Thank you, Anne. Okay, so let me try to set some context. So what I've done is I've tried to kind of break this into four key areas. One is we will look at the future of work, how HR is becoming the kind of center point of all the things happening in a business now, how learning is changing as an activity, as an interaction, as an experience, how learning consumption and design are going through a change, and what does all of this mean for the role of L&D in this and beyond. So I will not spend much time about us. We are a leading LMS and digital content solutions provider company. We've been around for more than 15 years now. Our LMS, UpsideLMS, is a highly awarded system used by about 175 plus customers in and outside India. And plethora is a new offering from our side, where we try to curate some of the world's best content, and we offer that curated content to our customers for either reskilling or upskilling or whatever their needs are. All right. So future of work. It's been almost a year, in fact, more than a year into the lockdown, into the COVID situation now. And I'm sure all of you have gone through these, components of how things are changing, how the work itself is changing. I've just tried to kind of summarize them into one place here. And in my view, what I have seen in the last 1 year, and both as a service provider to a lot of customers and also as a business ourselves, there is, in the last 1 year, I've seen that while of course remote work started as the only option we could survive, it has now getting increasingly normalized. So remote work is no more looked at as a backup thing. It is in fact becoming mainstream to a large extent. Now, because of this, there is a new hybrid way of working which is evolving, and of course, in the last few months, there have been offices going back to a physical workspace, but it has not been 100% either remote or either physical. So there is a hybrid way of working which is evolving now, where a lot of companies are experimenting with ideas of flexible working, where employees can choose to work from home or work from office or actually work from anywhere. Now, this has also led to reduced day-to-day social interactions among the employees, and it's an important part for a business to survive. Their employees need to be able to engage daily socially, not just work-wise. And this is the core of the fabric of the culture of a company. But it has reduced dramatically, as one can imagine. Of course, we are doing our best to kind of make do with virtual interactions, but this is definitely reduced a lot. There is also a gradual increase in the gig economy. While it has not yet been very permanent and prominent, what is definitely happening is, because of the freedom to work from anywhere or work remotely, there is an increased perception that it is possible to work for any company around the world, not just in the country. And also, the last 1 year also showed that permanent work may not, working at a single company for more than a few years may not be a reality in the future. So a lot of people are opting for short-term work, either freelance or just kind of short gigs with kind of companies. So this has a definite impact on the loyalty and attrition which the companies face today. So if you put together the hybrid way of working where people don't meet, social interactions are reducing, and more and more people joining the workforce are not going to be around for a long time, which means both attrition is going to increase and there is an impact on loyalty, because for loyalty to build, people need to stay in a company or an organization for a long time. And that is looking like it may not really be the case as it used to be about a year back. Now, this what has kind of resulted in is that the companies are deploying a virtual first enterprise model. While of course this was not an option when it started, but given the wants, even employees are now not looking to go back to a full-time office environment. At best, they are happy with a hybrid environment. So even if my entire company is going to be away for a single day, I have to be able to manage the entire business with a virtual environment. So companies are now looking at designing their entire enterprise, the way they work, virtual first. So everything which was to be done and should be done or was happening should now be possible through a virtual, either a tool or a software or ecosystem. And this also means, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's a work from anywhere, not just home or not just office, but people want flexibility that I could be anywhere in the world, but I should be able to work, which also means that, information security, data on cloud, always available systems, and IT support, which is not going to be, no more going to be in office, but around the world. And, that is all what is right now happening. Like in our case, we are a very small company, about 80 people, but we have half of our people working away from Pune, which is where our office is. And our IT support has dramatically changed the way we work. We have to ship laptops to people around the country. If they have a challenge with the laptop or any of the devices, we are seeing new challenges on how to service and support them. Overall, if you see, what we are seeing is the tone of culture of a company is changing to a very digital culture. Today to talk to anybody, we don't pick up phones. We do Teams or Zoom meeting. We virtually interact with everybody, and there is a lot of digitalization of things happening in the company, and that is slowly becoming a very digital culture. And because of the virtual first enterprise model which companies are employing and the digital culture, there is a lot of new tools which are coming into an enterprise. Right from like we use Zoom a lot now, Teams, or Slack, or there's so many tools we have not seen a year back, but today they have become part of our work. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can see Amit.
So, yeah. All right. So, while of course all of these things are changing the very way we work, we are changing the fabric of our org culture and org structure and behavior. But I think the relevant point for today is that all of these are impacting the way we learn. For example, if you just take the simple thing of influx of a number of new tools, imagine a company of 2,000 people or 3,000 people or 10,000 people, and suddenly you have introduced 10 new tools in the company within a couple of days. And it is imperative for everyone to work using those tools. Just, and we have seen that firsthand. We could imagine the kind of the learning requirements, the skilling requirements, even just those tools would bring into the picture. And that is just one component of what we're talking about. If you look at the way we learn has changed because of the work from anywhere thing, it also means that whatever we are learning, the content, the tools, the system, all of that has to be available online, on cloud, on mobile devices. and it has to be available in a way it doesn't become too heavy on our internet, because it's already being constrained to a large extent. So these all of these things lead to a sequence of activities, a sequence of requirements, and eventually it is also changing the way we are learning and we need to learn in future, which of course means that people in the field of L&D or HR, they have to be able to adapt to these very, very quickly, and also come up with new models of things to work for. And for example, increase in the gig economy. Now, if you have people joining you only for 6 months or 9 months and then they leave and somebody else joins, it does put a lot of pressure on reskilling, upskilling, induction, just teaching them the basic values of the company. So there is a lot of things which are going on right now, and that has in the last 1 year, all of these are the reasons HR has become almost the center point of all discussions, right from strategy to business to finance to the way we grow, to how we will survive in future and how we will beat our competition. So, and a large part of that is now, if we can learn and how we can learn better than the other companies, is how we will survive and beat the competition. So I just want to take a minute here, and any questions which I can answer here, anything which you want to ask.
No, not
any examples you have come across as an HR practitioner about these components and how we are changing the way we learn?
Not at the moment, Amit, because we haven't even introduced something like that in our system yet. I think it might be a situation for us at this moment.
Fair enough. Right. So in case anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I can't see all the hands, so I think it would just be okay to just be on unmute and just speak up the question. So.
Sure.
Okay. So let's have a quick look at how the learning is changing. So we now know what is impacting. So we have seen a lot of, and these are not the exhaustive list of factors. These are some of the factors which we have seen firsthand. And of course, these are, like dominoes, the chain of dominoes. So they, all of these factors will lead to other factors, which will eventually, all of them come back and create an ecosystem which is different from what we are used to. And whenever anything changes in any way, the first thing we have to do is to unlearn a new thing, unlearn something we have already learned, and then learn a new thing. And being an organization, this does mean that all of these exercises have to be done in a regular and in a very consistent manner, because it is not just about one single person or two people; it's about the entire company. So let's have a look at how learning is changing. So, okay, I'll just try to explain this thing. So, if you see the history of learning, let's say the last 30 years, maybe 35 years or so, from a very kind of regular only classroom-based training, there has been a change in the way learning has evolved. So, I think from the classroom-based training model, it first went on to an automation model, where the attempt was to create efficiency in the learning process by making things work on computers. So automation was more about computerization of the processes, mostly the processes. For example, basic tracking of who has done what, like a spreadsheet containing details of who is going to take what class is a kind of an automation, because it does make things easier for the people who are managing and the people who are attending the sessions. Even emails was one way of automation in that sense. Now, from automation, it evolved to virtualization, which is where e-learning kind of came about, where it was possible to centralize the content delivery to a large extent, so that people could access some part of the training virtually. And then as these things evolved, and then internet became stronger, the reliance on internet became really strong. There was a shift to an on-demand way of learning. So, most of the training, and I think even before COVID, it was kind of decided by the companies. Okay, and it is role-wise or skill-wise training. So let's say if you have a white collar worker or a blue collar worker and their manufacturing department or HR department, a lot of the training function was decided by the L&D function, and it was kind of not on demand. So I could not really ask or seek any training for myself if I wanted that. And on demand also, in kind of the second part of the on demand was the devices or the way we access training. So while yes, first was the web-based systems, which is WBT, web-based training systems. The next was, of course, the mobile systems. And now, if you see, the preference of a learner is to access mobile through learning through mobile, learning through mobile, and there is an overlap of using the same devices for almost all the activities. Now, all of these are now transforming to digitalization of learning. So, if you mix all of them, in terms of and mostly the on-demand part, that is where the learning is now getting digitalized. And in the, I think, next few slides, we'll definitely look at what does it mean for learning to be digitalized. And as of now, in the last 1 year, this transformation has been happening gradually, before even COVID hit us. And, there was a strong movement towards digitalization of learning, on-demand learning, which was already there, but it was not taking root. And I think COVID just kind of made that, possible. It accelerated this transformation, and it is not just the speed. I think what it did was that it kind of did it at scale, because every single company in the world was impacted in the same way. So there was no difference in how people looked at things. And when there is no difference in how people look at things, any movement is very, very fast. So within a couple of months or few weeks, I think, this transformation was much, much faster than it used to be. And I think what I know and what I see and what I believe is a large part of this transformation is now irreversible. There is, I don't see a way of things going back to how they were a year before or before COVID, and especially in the terms of learning function or L&D function, the way we are going to work in future is not going to change a lot from where we are today. It may become a little bit different, but I think that the expectation of the learners, it has now changed for almost for good. And that is what is driving a lot of work in the L&D functions, in the companies, with the people like us, where we are trying to find the best way possible to adapt to that and be able to service that requirement moving forward on a long-term basis. So, these are some of the key components of learning, which I think are changing and evolving very fast because of the last 1 year and because of the transformation into digital learning. Now, the basic starting point, if you look at any of these things, let's say, for example, interaction between learner and instructor, from a very physical to digital environment, now a pure virtual digital environment, this itself is changing a lot, which means there is a need to redesign how learning is delivered. If instructors are not able to be a part of all the learning interactions, then we need to redesign a lot of learning so that learners can have the same learning without an instructor being available. So self-learning would be more important moving forward. The model and structure of learning, the learning rate, because of the way we are working from home, we are working remotely. There is also a lot of studies which are now showing that there's a increased fatigue, increased burnout in people, and we are ending up working longer hours than we used to. It is also impacting the kind of time we have now for the learning activities, which means learners are now demanding learning which can be done quickly. It doesn't really impose a lot of time demands on them, and which is either through micro learning or short learning or bite-sized learning, or something which is easily available, and whenever I want, I can take the learning, but it doesn't take a lot of time because the kind of time I have available to myself as a learner is not very high. And this is also leading to a change in the format and technologies, from like a SCORM or an e-learning course, which is almost like a PowerPoint, 40, 50 pages. It is now becoming either videos or, chatbot based learning, or simply in some cases, we have seen even SMSs are used for learning delivery in areas where internet is not very good. So the entire format and technologies used to deliver the format are changing a lot. There is a high reliance on mobile technologies now, and either mobile apps or on-demand mobile chatbots, or multiple things like that. Now it is also becoming important that while yes, we're delivering learning in a large setting to some extent satisfactorily, but it is also imposing demands on how we are testing and assessing the effectiveness of learning. So we have to find new ways to do that. In the classroom setting, we will take a physical test. In e-learning, the learners will go through an online exam. But if you see in the last 1 year, there is an increase in tools for proctoring, for anti-cheating, examination tools. A lot of things are, because this is what is happening in the new age now. So that testing tools also have to evolve accordingly. And of course, that does impact the learning, the knowledge management. And I would say in whole, there is a change in the way we learn as a company, and the entire learning culture is changing. So and that is a very big thing. That is a very big change for any company. And learning culture, in my view, is responsible for the growth of a company to a large extent. If a company has a positive learning culture, which means the company has that assurance that whatever happens in future, whatever comes their way, the organization will adapt to that quickly and can learn new things or unlearn old things and change the way they work very quickly. And in a way, a strong learning culture makes the company agile and resilient to changes or interruptions or even disruptions. Any questions so far?
Yes, Amit. I would like to know if some company hasn't embraced this particular tool or anything for that matter. They might have a learning that is going on, but which is not in a disciplined manner. How can they bring about a learning culture without a tool, or with a tool if you can
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, I was part of a session sometime back where learning culture was one of the key topics to be discussed. And I think learning culture is a very while it is not an impossible thing to achieve. It is almost very organic. So it starts from the way the company started, and it is a part of how everybody behaves in the company. So like learning culture is something which comes from the top management, and it is a culmination of how curious the company is and how aligned. So I think one of the things we learned in those discussions was that learning culture can be driven by making sure every employee.
We can't hear you, Amit.
On clear job performance.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, better. Yes, sorry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Please.
Sorry. So One second. Yeah. So learning culture, I think if a company does not have a very strong learning culture, I think the first thing to be done is to make sure that every employee in the company understands that the learning is an activity which not is just impacting the business of the company, but it is also making their work easier. So the company has to find, or the L&D function has to find a way to motivate learners to learn, because it helps them individually to grow. So when there is a goal congruence of a learning of an individual to the company's goal, then learning culture can be strongly and slowly embedded into the workflow. Because it is important for the employees to understand that if I'm learning something new, it is helping me grow as a person, as an individual, and it is also helping me perform a job which is good for the company. If we push learning only to maximize the organization's profit or goals, it may not motivate the people enough, and they will soon not want to learn beyond a point. They will just want to learn enough for doing the job properly. They won't go beyond that point to be able to innovate, to be able to do a better change management or lead, or become good mentors and coaches for other people in the company. So I think learning culture is something which starts from the top management, and it is important for everyone in the company to understand that learning will help not just the company, but also help them grow as an individual. So it is almost like building their resume, or making them understand that it is they will grow first, and eventually the company will grow because they are growing. But it is a long process. If a company is not used to, and learning is not just about training. It is also about what kind of informal learning processes you have in place. Are people open enough to talk to each other? So let's say if I have a challenge in doing something, can I go to somebody and say, okay, I don't know how to do this. Can you tell me how to do that? So hierarchy, the politics in the company, the openness in the culture, all of those are key components of building a good learning culture.
Thank you, Amit.
Any other question? Okay. Okay, so after looking at how learning itself is changing, we'll also try to look at this change or evolution from a learning consumption and design perspective in terms of, as a learner and as a learner, a learning designer, what changes are happening which we need to accommodate into. So just to summarize, the whole activity so far. So, and this is of course, what I have seen is happening. There is a big shift from training to learning. There is a very big shift from delivering to seeking, and from physical and digital environment to a digital environment. And there used to be a lot of focus on content earlier, that companies used to focus very, very much on getting the right content in place. So we need to design courses for compliance, design courses for training, reskilling. And that focus is now changing slowly to focus on the learner and the business impact. So individually, people are looking at each employee and say, okay, what does this employee need to learn to make a better business impact? And earlier, there was a lot of focus on designing learning for roles and groups. So, okay, we will design some learning for shop floor people, or new managers, or new hires, or first-time managers, or middle managers. It has now, slowly becoming hyper-personalized. There is a tendency and intention in each company now to look at everybody individually and say, okay, what does this person need? What does this person need? There may be two people in the same role and same profile, same skill set, but they may need different kind of training or learning because of their personality and profiles. So that is the kind of hyper-personalization which is happening in the companies right now. And from a tech-driven learning ecosystem, companies are now looking to create digital learning communities. So they are now, so basically what is happening is, they are trying to decentralize or federalize the learning ecosystem. They don't want to have any control team or any team which is driving this initiative. What they want is they want to be the enablers of learning. So through the LMS or LXPs or multiple systems, they want to tell everybody, okay, we have a lot of things available on these ecosystems. It is up to you to go and seek what you want to learn. It is up to you and go and talk to people and you build your learning communities with each other. That is what the focus is on right now. And from a separate process, so training was a separate activity so far. Okay, it was almost like you have new hires, we'll have a training for them, and then every 1 year or so, or every 3 months, we'll have some training processes. So training used to come as a separate interaction for every employee. So if I'm doing some work, then I know after 3 months I would do some training courses. But now the focus is on embedding the learning in the workflow. So if I'm doing something and I change my role or I am doing a new thing or even the same thing, if I need to learn something, it has to come within my workflow. It cannot be a scheduled process which I have to wait for 2 months to learn because my job is today. And if I learn this thing after 2 months, it will not help me or the company. So that is where, and this embedding in workflow is the key driver behind, things like mobile based learning where I can just quickly go and search. So, artificial intelligence, which can recommend training or performance support tools, which you can, let's say you are a manager or a project manager and you want some help in communication. So that tool can give you the right content to consume to learn on that. But the key thing is it is happening when you need it within the workflow. It is not going to be a separate process that you will ask your training department to set up a training class for you and they will find 5 more people and it will take a month to schedule. It is not going to happen like that. So this is, I think if you look at these shifts, the right hand side is what are the components of a digital based learning ecosystem. The digital does not only mean technology, it means that, it is using all the possible digital tools to create an ecosystem where employees can learn and they can learn within their flow of work and they can learn as per their individual profiles and individual learning styles or learning needs, not as a group as a whole. So this is a huge change which is happening. And as I said, COVID has only made this change faster. It was already happening to a large extent. Some companies were trying with a lot of ideas, but COVID has made this faster because all of these have now become the requirement instead of an experiment. So this is where the big shift is happening right now. And if, in my personal view, and I say it often, in my view, what I think is happening is that the shift of responsibility is happening from the company to the learner. The company is no more saying, okay, you come join us and we will train you for life. They are saying, okay, we will give you all the things available with us, with us. But the responsibility to learn is on you. You have a job to perform, you want to do it better, you can learn new things, but it is not going to be a function where somebody will come and tell you, okay, do these courses or do these training activities or do these learning activities and you will perform better. So the responsibility of learning is shifting to the learners. And this itself is going to change the entire ecosystem because when learners take control of anything or the users, for example, we are now using so many tools for e-commerce, for our household needs or for our daily activities. As soon as an end user takes charge of a tool, it has to be designed in a way it is easy for everyone to use it. And that is where, search, artificial intelligence, recommendations, the system being able to understand the learner profile, all of these things are becoming a part of the digital tools. But this single factor is what I think is now happening faster than before. And just to kind of summarize the ecosystem, how it is changing. So, while of course a lot of these things were available even before COVID, and COVID hasn't kind of made these tools new, it has just made them more relevant. So initially we used to have a lot of focus on learning management system or the LMS or sales enablement tool where sales team would have a special tool to learn about new product features or new launches or new versions or about pricing. and then evolved learning systems also were evolving to a learning experience system where the the system has the capacity and the capability to be able to learn about the learner and kind of help them find the right content for the either the skills or their career path or their learning path. And micro learning, like short bites of courses or nuggets of courses were delivered to mobile mostly. Now, the last 1 year, we have seen that the new tools which have risen now are virtual classroom. Of course, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Teams were there for a long time, but they have now become extremely relevant and extremely compulsory and required. Collaboration, social learning, for example, Slack, even Teams, and multiple such tools are now being used to connect people with each other, not just for communication, but also for collaboration, learning, project-based tools. Learning bots are becoming very common, where the systems, even LMSs like VA, we also have a small chatbot within the system to help people with the system. So if I have a challenge or using the system, they can go and chat with a small chatbot saying, okay, uh, I want some help in this thing, and the system will help them with that. There are specialized learning bots available for language learning or for multiple areas of skills. Now, what is now happening is, while these were all available in the past, the requirement now each company has, and what is becoming more evident is that all of these are now supposed to be available within one system or one ecosystem. So, which means integration of all of these tools seamlessly with each other. So, as a learner, I don't really have a preference about learning through Slack or Teams or Zoom or an LMS or an LXP or a learning bot. I should be able to go to a system and say, I want this, I need this, I demand this. And whatever happens in the back end, the system will find me the right content, and it has to be just the right content which I need. I don't want to go through tens of options. I don't have time for those things. So this is what is we are seeing happening, that companies are moving toward a single ecosystem which takes care of all of these environments, because at every point in the journey of a learner, these things become important, differently. So a learning bot may help them quickly when they're on the move. Collaboration will help them talk to each other or their project team. And because a lot of people are now virtually operating, these digital tools are becoming very, very popular now. So I'll just spend 2-3 more minutes on this, and then I'll open for questions and discussion. Now, all of these are from a perspective of learner and from a perspective of the systems and the tools available. But what is the role of L&D in between? L&D, what will the L&D function do? So the last 1 year has thrown multiple challenges to L&D, and I hope the font is visible to all of you. There has been a change in, so okay, these are all the impact points. And when I say challenges, all of these things have suddenly become different. They're all being done properly for a while, a long time back. But then, because in the last 1 year, because of the situation, suddenly all of these have come to the front, and they all pose a challenge to the L&D in how to manage them. Right from learning culture to employee engagement to leadership development, even to building resilience and growth mindset in the employees. And employee well-being, it is now a very big challenge because of the mental fatigue and not being able to do physical exercises in a way. And then how to embed learning in the workflow, and continuous upskilling and reskilling, attrition, new people joining, people staying for short term. It leads to almost like a constant flux of training. You have to upskill, reskill, new people joining, old people leaving. So it's for example, Big Basket, they lost about 12,000 people in the first few weeks of lockdown, and then they hired about 20,000 people in the next few weeks. So imagine the kind of training they have to do for those 16, 20,000 people within a few weeks, because they have to be, and because of the lockdown, customers are not really very patient for deliveries. So to train all of them on their apps and the processes, that is the challenge which companies are facing these days. And then how do we manage on-the-job learning? Earlier I was able to go to my peer or my colleague or my senior in the office and say, okay, show me how you do this thing. But today, even connecting with other people is a challenge. You have to schedule, you have to do a calendar invite, and you have to meet properly. And it is not, and it might not be a very big motivating factor for people. So we might be losing out on the job learning, which is a very big part of how people learn. And I think that the biggest challenge is change management. This COVID was a huge change. It's a disruptor to the largest extent, and it has not yet gone out. It may not go forever. Something new might come up. How do we create a culture where we can create a change management process easier than before? So these are some of the things which L&D is facing as of now. And the role of L&D, as I see, earlier the role of L&D was limited to educating the company or each employee about their roles and skills and giving them the right content and training and kind of coordinating with everybody to get the training done. It has now, changed to, it is now no more a role which is only for that purpose. It has now become a role which is central to the strategy, to the HR, because, along with the business, the L&D and HR have to now set goals which are achievable. In a way, L&D is now becoming a very active consultant in all business areas, And I have seen this with all of our customers. L&D is now involved in critical decision making for the growth of the company, because sales, people who were, let's say a bank or a credit card company, you remember the people used to come home and sell you stuff, but they can't. They have to be now 20, 30, 40,000 people have to be trained, medical practitioners, MRs, so many people in the field, they have to be now trained. So sales is now looking at L&D, not for training, but to make it work. So because without that crucial piece, sales cannot really perform. And if that does not perform, the company doesn't perform. So L&D is now becoming almost like a consultant in all business areas, be it sales or marketing or ops or project management and everything, leadership development, because it is now suddenly becoming the thing to go for. And there is a huge change in the role of L&D. So from a scheduler of training, it is now becoming a thinker, what to do, how does my company learn, how do we stay relevant and afloat in these turbulent times. That is the role of L&D which is changing now. And I'll share this PPT with Pasita too. Some resources we use for our learning, and I have just put them. There are a number of resources. There are so many books available, ebooks available, a lot of free resources available. These are some of the ones we know have been there for a long time now. In fact, they evolved as the industry evolved. They've seen the learning go from CD-based to e-learning to what it is today. And you will find a lot of good information about how learning itself is changing. And these are good resources. So with that, I come to the close of my session. I think I've taken about 2-4 extra minutes, but I leave the room open for questions and discussions. I'll be happy to answer any questions to the best of my experience and knowledge. And I again, thank all of you for your patience and listening to me quite patiently. And please feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Amit, for the very detailed presentation. I have one question, which is like, what trends do you foresee for maintaining learner engagement through gamification? And what are the areas do you think that we can use this in?
Sure. So gamification, of course, I didn't go into the details of each of these activities, but gamification is, I think we have seen, it has become quite a good way to engage learners. And I think that goes back to one of the points I mentioned, which is learning rate. Now, there are two things happening. One is learners are, they don't have time for learning, and that is a sad thing, but that is the reality. They're already mentally fatigued, and for learners to go through text heavy, or even just to listen to a video without interacting with the video, that may not work well, and it is not working well. So gamification is an excellent way, because there is no other option available where learners will engage very actively with the content. See, earlier, interactivity used to mean you have a next and previous button in the content, and then you make them wait to read the entire thing, and they see a video. But they don't have the patience and time for this right now. And gamification, of course, now that everything is being done virtually, so we now are able to find options to deliver training through a gamified environment almost for every topic or every skill. It is still difficult for a few skills, but I think, and it is because of the mass thing. If we produce more gamified learning, it will also become cheaper to develop. So I think that's an excellent tool to use. And in fact, short games, even if it is a simple game like an assessment, like a KBC format game, or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire format game, as long as it has some element of a game, I think we have seen people interact with that better than other learning content formats. But keeping it short will be still the key. A 10-minute game or a 15-minute game. You may have 10 games, but not more than 10 or 15 minutes each.
Amit, Aisha here. So can you throw some light on the adaptability of the, towards the of multi-generational workforce towards the new changing trend in learning? Because at one end we have a generation like baby boomers who might be finding it difficult to adapt to the digitalized era, and on the other side we have Gen Z people who are even ready to help the baby boomers and other generation to learn. So can you throw some lights over that, please?
Sure. So I think two things which are happening, and this generation difference has been there, for a long time now. I think it's always there, of course. There are always generations, and I think what one thing which has changed in the favor of tools is that in the last 1 year we have realized there is no other option, and I think even using Teams is a challenge for some people, but because it cannot go away, companies have to find a way to make people understand and learn those tools better. I think the onus is on the tool designers like us, or designing of content, where we have to find some common denominator which works for both the new and the older generations. But the truth is that the digital tools will not be, there will not be an option to not use digital tools. The only best way forward is to find the right kind of baseline which works for all of them, and create good tutorials or videos or help material. Like in our company, when we moved to a remote working environment, we did a couple of sessions for and we have a generation, we don't have anybody older than I think 40, except maybe myself. But so we still had a session because people were finding difficult to use Teams or other tools we were using. We suddenly moved everything online and to digital. So even we had to. So I think the key is to be able to work continuously with people, and also keep pushing for the best tools, which are. I think the good tools today, they have a very intuitive work UX, and they're easy to use. But yes, that will always remain. I think there is not really a very solid solution to that problem. The key is to be able to find time to help people and create a support group like we have. People who learn and who know things better than others, they are able to give time to other people to kind of quickly help them. So instead of having a training for everybody, you create support system for maybe older generation to use the tools.
Sure. Thank you, Amit.
I guess no more questions, I believe.
Right. So I'll send you the PowerPoint, Prasita, and
Okay.
You have contact for Pranjali in case you need any other material. I've just given some resources here, but our blog also, we have a lot of content available there. We do have access to some ebooks and some resources which we, kind of have through our partners. So in case you need any extra resources, you can just ask Pranjali and she will be able to help you out with that.
Sure. Very well. Shama, over to you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Amit. It was a very insightful session on learning and development. And it is a pleasure having you here. And thank you so much, Jerry, for connecting NIPM with Upside. So thanks once again. Yeah.
Thank you, Shama. Thank you, Prasita. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everyone. And I wish you all a good weekend of whatever is remaining now and a nice week ahead. Thank you. Happy Holi in advance. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.